Welcome to IBM Watson X with NeuralSeek Learning Lab, hosted by the team at Cerebral Blue. Our goal is to provide you with the essential knowledge for provisioning NeuralSeek and integrating it seamlessly with both an IBM Watson Discovery instance and an IBM Watson X Assistant Virtual Agent. By leveraging the combined power of NeuralSeek and IBM's pioneering technology, prepare to enhance your technical expertise and optimize customer engagement strategies. We have a commitment to transparency and want to disclaim that participants are to come prepared with the necessary resources to fully engage in the practical exercises. We recommend having an active instance of NeuralSeek pay-per-answer subscription. Our team will provide the credentials for IBM Watson Discovery and Watson X Assistant prior to the lab. We encourage participants to take advantage of the free trials and subscriptions available, but it is the responsibility of each participant to understand and manage the associated costs related to the use of NeuralSeek and any other integrated services within their IBM cloud environment. Kindly ensure that all necessary resources are set up and accessible prior to beginning the Learning Lab for a seamless and enriching experience. If you would like to connect with our technical team on a 15-minute call to provide any of the listed resources, please schedule utilizing our Calendly scheduler or emailing general@cerebralblue.com.
Alrighty, let me hide some of these floating panels. All right, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Jordan. I am part of the NeuralSeek team here, and today I will be walking you through the setup, configuration, and several features of NeuralSeek within an IBM environment. And we're going to be following the IBM Learning Lab guide found at labs.neuralseek.com. As a note today, you will not need to bring a Watson Discovery instance with you, as we've already provisioned one ahead of time and did a scrape of our documentation just to save us some time here today. We're going to be looking at 3 different modules following the lab guide. Module 1 will be configuration and integration, where we will set up and learn how to effectively configure it, a NeuralSeek instance with a Watson Discovery instance and a Watson Assistant Virtual Agent. In Module 2, we'll be looking at some more key features of NeuralSeek that are instrumental in training our virtual agents. And then finally, in Module 3, we're going to be exploring our mAIstro feature, where we'll just be scraping the surface on some of NeuralSeek's dynamic playground for free-form content generation, task automation, and leading in RAG for enterprise. So I'm going to load up my Module 1 of my Learning Lab guide here, and then get started. So looking at Module 1.1, setting up NeuralSeek. The first thing that we'll need to do is log into our IBM Cloud account here and create a NeuralSeek resource. So I have my IBM Cloud account loaded. From the resource catalog, I'm going to click Create a Resource. And then within my catalog, I'm going to search for a NeuralSeek instance. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click this product. Great, so now within our NeuralSeek product, I'm going to ensure that I'm in the correct location, in the correct region for me. We do offer bring your own large language model plan. If you're following along with that today, there are additional steps within our lab guide with information on how to provision that instance. But instead, I'm going to choose the pay per answer plan and utilize NeuralSeek's curated large language model. Scrolling down below, I'm going to provide a unique service name for my NeuralSeek instance. So I'm going to name NeuralSeek Learning Lab. Personally, I'm going to add mine to a resource group, but this is optional if it's not applicable to you. I'm going to make sure that I've clicked that I've read our third-party agreements and then go ahead and create to provision our NeuralSeek instance. Fantastic. So I'm going to click that blue Launch NeuralSeek to open up our NeuralSeek console. And this brings us to our landing page, where we're going to walk through a bit of the home journey within NeuralSeek. Our first page that it brings us to is our Basics Getting Started page. And this is where we're going to want to go ahead and enter a company name. The one that I'm going to go with is NeuralSeek, since that is what our connected documentation will be referencing. You can also pick a default language, one that matches the language of your knowledge base. I'm going to leave that as English because that's what our knowledge base content is written in. And then this option down below allows you to choose an instance of your NeuralSeek, whether it's externally facing or more internally for organizational use. And both of these pre-tune some safety parameters for you. But for the purpose of this lab, I'm going to choose internal because we do not need some of the guardrails that are set up for our testing purposes. Go ahead and refresh that page. Make sure I type in NeuralSeek here. Select our internal use and then click next. This brings us to our data page where we're going to connect our knowledge base. So like I said before, we had already provisioned a discovery instance prior to the lab. So I'm going to pull those values in here and then connect to our Watson Discovery knowledge base, making sure that our type says Watson Discovery and our knowledge base language is English. So I'm just going to take a moment and grab those variables off camera here. They were also sent in an email prior to the lab connected to a PowerPoint slide. So I'm going to grab that API or that Discovery Service URL, our Discovery Service API key, and then our Discovery Service project ID. I'm going to take a moment here and pause and make sure that we are getting those correct values in there. Control C. Before I click next and move on, I do want to test our connection and make sure that we are not missing any connection information here. So when a red error pops up like that, I'm just going to retry with my correct variables, making sure that I have the entire URL, key, and ID copied and pasted over. All right, now we're going to test that connection again. Perfect. So this is what we want to see is that green Watson Discovery response time confirming our successful connection to our knowledge base. Now I am confident to click next and move on to our organized screen. So at this point, we're not going to be utilizing much of the categories section right here at the top. We will come back to this later in the lab. But just for your information, we do provide automatic intent categorization where you're able to describe categories with natural language, and then NeuralSeek works to automatically organize any user queries into those different categories. We will, however, define our virtual agent framework, selecting our virtual agent type. We have many different options here today, but we're going to stick with Watson Assistant Actions. And then we can leave embedded links and returned responses disabled as it's just not necessary for the purpose of the lab, but do know that you are able to enable that feature. So I'm going to click next. And now I'm going to tune NeuralSeek for our data. Our first prompt here asks which of these sections look most like our data. So I'm going to choose the one over on the left here, where it describes important phrases that are surrounded by many lines of text to explain them, as opposed to 1 or 2 lines of relevant information, because this is what most of our data that's connected to our knowledge base looks like. Down below, we're going to choose an option that also describes our data requirements. Would we want to give a lot of information to the large language model, or would we want to limit just a few of our top documents to force an answer from those? I'm going to stick with the top option here. And then below, describing our data currency. This is just asking if all of our documents are current and relevant, which they are, so I'm going to leave that selected. Or does our knowledge base contain some old, outdated information such as blog posts, and we need NeuralSeek to help with that date prioritization feature? So I click next to save my responses, and then this brings us back to our welcomes page of NeuralSeek. I'm not going to dive too deep into these different features here, but just for your reference, we are able to auto-generate questions in order to quickly bootstrap your instance. In a similar fashion, you're able to manually input questions and upload directly into our Curate tab for quick and easy bootstrap. Or you're able to upload a set of test questions where we do provide a guided CSV file template for your reference if you go that route. But just to summarize here, we have set up and launched a NeuralSeek instance and configured our knowledge base and are ready to begin searching. This brings us to module 1.2 of our Learning Lab guide, where we're going to set up our virtual agent. So I'm going to pull up that part of our lab guide here. And then knowing that our next steps are setting up our Watson Assistant virtual agent, I'm going to navigate back into our IBM Cloud account and search for our catalog for a Watson X Assistant resource. I'm going to click on Catalog, Watson X Assistant. Right. In the same fashion as we set up the NeuralSeek instance, I'm going to make sure that I am in my correct region. And then I'm going to choose our light plan for this instance. Scrolling down similarly, I'm going to add a unique service name, such as Watson X Assistant Learning Lab. And just as I provisioned before with my NeuralSeek instance, I'm going to use a unique resource group. But if this is not relevant to you, it is an optional step. Making sure that I've read the license and following agreements, and then I'm going to click Create to Provision. All right, so now I'm going to click that blue Launch Watson X Assistant to get into that console. Great. And here we begin prompts with creating our first assistant. So our step one is to add a unique assistant name. I'm going to name this one IBM Learning Lab. Optionally, you can add a description, and then we're also going to leave our assistant language as English. Clicking next, that moves us onto our Personalize Your Assistant page. So following these prompts, the outcome of them don't really affect, or the prompts that we choose don't really affect the outcome of our assistant. So I'm going to go with some basic default answers here. So we're not sure where we're going to deploy our assistant yet. We're going to make sure that we name our industry and our role as a student, just for our testing purposes. And then what describes our best need. We're just going to choose not sure at this time for ease of testing. So I'm going to click next to our Customize Our Chat UI page. So here you can rename your assistant and change some of the colors to your liking. But again, the customization does not affect the outcome of our assistant for the purpose of this lab. So instead, we'll just move on and click Next. We can successfully preview our assistant, and then at the top, click that blue Create button. Great, so now we see our congratulations screen, knowing that we have successfully configured our Watson X Assistant virtual agent and is now ready to be connected to NeuralSeek for use. This moves us on to step 1.3 of our Learning Lab guide, where we're going to integrate NeuralSeek as a custom extension. So following these lab guides, we're going to integrate as add a custom extension of NeuralSeek to our assistant. Then we're going to authenticate and integrate, and then modify for generative AI responses. So for our first steps with adding that NeuralSeek custom extension, I'm going to navigate over here to our sidebar and down at the bottom, the Integrations tab. When I click on that, I'm going to scroll down till about the middle where I can see the Extensions section and the blue Build a Custom Extension feature. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. This intro bit gives us a bit of an explanation on how to get started. So we're going to click Next after reviewing. And then we're going to fill out some basic information, such as an extension name. Here, I'm just going to name it IBM plus NeuralSeek Learning Lab. Optionally, again, you're able to add a description of this extension, but I'm just going to click Next. And then we're prompted for our Open API file in JSON format. So this is actually found back within our NeuralSeek console. So I'm going to navigate back over to that tab. And then at the top, the third tab over is our Integrate screen. So I'm going to click on that. And we offer many different features for integration within NeuralSeek. The top one that it defaults to is our Watson custom extension. And this is the page that we're looking for. Here are step-by-step of what we're going through currently with integrating this custom extension. So we can follow those along, and our first step will be here to download that custom extension Open API file that's unique to this instance. So when I click on that black button, it downloads to my local machine, and then I'm just going to pull that back over into our Watson X assistant. So I've navigated back into our assistant. I'm going to drag and drop that Open API file here, and then click Next. All right, so we can review our extension below, review that it needs an authentication type, which we will move on to next, and then also review the many different operations and features that are available within this extension. That all looks really good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. Great, so now we have our NeuralSeek custom extension added. We need to authenticate and then integrate as well. So our next step will be staying on this screen. I can see under extensions, right here is our new IBM plus NeuralSeek Learning Lab extension. I want to add this by clicking the Add button at the bottom, confirming that I would like to add, and it'll bring me to that authentication site. So moving past the getting started instructions, I can choose an authentication type as API key off, and then it prompts us to enter a unique API key. Again, this is found within our NeuralSeek console. So I'm going to navigate back into NeuralSeek, making sure I'm under Integrate, Watson Custom Extension, and down here on step 5 is that API key that is unique to our NeuralSeek instance. So I'm going to click the Copy to Clipboard button to make it very easy to use to pull back into our assistant and paste right into our authentication screen. So we can see that password there. I'm just going to go ahead and click Next, not save my password. And then again, you can review the many different operations that we have available with this extension, and then click Finish to authenticate. Great, so now our NeuralSeek extension that's integrated with our assistant is authenticated and ready to start answering questions as soon as we set up an action for fallback search. So this is very easily done because NeuralSeek offers a NeuralSeek starter kit action. So the first thing we're going to do is navigate back over to our sidebar and make sure we're under our build actions. Staying under created by you, we're going to go ahead and create our first action. You can start from scratch, but like I said, we do have a simple, easy to use quick start template. So I'm going to choose that option. Under the green Do More with Starter Kits is where I can find our NeuralSeek starter kit. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and check that I want to add this template. Okay, great. So our template has been successfully added to our assistant, and we can see that here our action is NeuralSeek search. However, when I view the status bar, it is red and shows that it's missing that one extension that we just created. So let's fix that. Click the name of the action to navigate inside, and we can see this fleshed out NeuralSeek search action. Step number 3 is highlighted red, and this is where we're calling that extension. When I click into that action, I can see that the extension is not fully configured. So to fix this, I'll just click Edit Extension. And from the drop-down menu, I'm going to select that newly added NeuralSeek extension we just created, IBM plus NeuralSeek Learning Lab. We offer many different operations to choose from the For the purpose of this lab, however, we're going to choose Seek and Answer from NeuralSeek. And then we do need to set our question parameter to a session variable. So I'm going to click the drop-down, session variables, and then that query text variable. Right, that looks good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. Review down below that those are the settings that we've added. Looks good. And then I'm going to click that Save icon in the top right corner. All right. When I close out of this specific action, I want to make sure and verify that our status symbol is now a green circle with a check mark and shows that there are no errors. So now our integration is properly connected and our extension is ready to use. However, our final step is to now set up that fallback search to change our default responses to our generative AI responses. So we can do that by navigating over to our Set by Assistant actions. And we can see some already some actions here in our list. And the one that we're looking for is our No Matches action. So I'm going to go ahead and click into that to edit. And we're just going to make a few different edits here. Our first edit is completely deleting step number 2, as it's just not necessary for this action. So instead of clicking into it, I'm just going to hover over and then click that delete trash can icon and then confirm that I want to delete step 2. The second edit I'm going to make is within the step 1 of this action. So I'm going to click that step 1 to navigate inside the action, and I'm going to make one more deletion here, which is that conditional statement. So just over on the right-hand side of that condition, I'm going to select that X button to delete that condition. And we can see our canned response here and our assistant says. So I'm going to preview just so we have for reference our default response before we show what our generative AI response will be. So following the lab guide, it does offer a question of why is the sky blue? So we're just going to ask that into our previewed assistant here. Make sure that we are hitting that no matches action, and then it is showing that default assistant says response of, I'm afraid I don't understand your question. In comparison, we'll look at what a generative AI response with NeuralSeek looks like. So I'm going to delete whatever that canned response within assistant says. And then down below, our and then statement shows ending the action. Instead, I'm going to revert to a sub action. So I'm going to click the drop down, go to a sub action. The sub action that we're looking for is our NeuralSeek search action. And we do want to select that check mark underneath to end this action after the other one is complete. I'm going to go ahead and click apply. And then I'm going to save that change. Now, when I go and I preview and I ask the same question within the assistant of why is the sky blue? What we can see here is that we're hitting that sub action, that NeuralSeek search sub action. We see those 3 dots, meaning that we are triggering that fallback function, reaching out to NeuralSeek's API, and NeuralSeek is generating an answer for us. Great, so while that loads, we can see right here, I'm not an expert in this, but the sky appears blue due to the scattering of sunlight by gases in the Earth's atmosphere. So this was our generative AI response as opposed to our default response. If you wanted to continue to inspect that API call, you can click inspect right here by extension info. But just to summarize, our NeuralSeek call action that allows for generative AI responses to all queries is now set up, it is tested, and it is ready to use. So that concludes module 1 of our Learning Lab guide, and we will delve into module 2 next. I'm going to grab one sip of water while I open up that lab guide. All right. So module 2, now that we've completed setup, we're going to take a deeper dive into NeuralSeek itself And the purpose of Module 2 Seeking Answers is to highlight some key features of NeuralSeek that are instrumental in training our newly created virtual agent. Loading up Module 2.1, Seeking Answers of the lab guide, we're going to head back over to our NeuralSeek instance, and we're going to launch that Seek tab. Our Seek tab of NeuralSeek is where we can ask questions and get generative responses from NeuralSeek and see another level of detail than what just the chatbot would respond with. And this ensures accuracy and instills confidence in the reliability of our responses that are generated by NeuralSeek. So to begin, we'll start with asking a question that we know is not in our knowledge base. Our knowledge base is connected to our NeuralSeek documentation. So the question that I'm going to go with following the lab guide is, what is the best cereal? I'm going to go ahead and click enter to generate a question. And we can see our response pop up here. Down below, it provides us some insights to our response, such as our total response time, our knowledge base response time, as well as our semantic match and analysis. So we can see that we have a semantic match score of 0 here. And our semantic analysis describes this as there's nothing in our knowledge base that contributed to this answer, so semantic analysis score is not possible. We also can look at our knowledge-based competence and coverage scores, both at 0%, knowing that this answer is effectively a hallucination because we did not have the coverage within our knowledge base. There's nothing in our documentation about cereal types. And then our knowledge base was not competent enough to answer this question relevantly. So instead, for comparison, we're going to ask a question that I know will have a bit of a higher confidence and then look at comparing those scores. So something that is in our knowledge base is all about our Seek feature. So what is NeuralSeek's Seek feature? All right. So we can see our generated response here describing NeuralSeek's Seek feature. And something that is unique within NeuralSeek is our answer provenance, which over here on the right, I can control the highlighting of our answer by turning our provenance on and off. We can also change our session terms and provide unique session user ID with our unique session ID. But what I wanted to mention here about our provenance is that sometimes phrases will be generated or just single keywords will be highlighted with our provenance. When our whole phrases are generated or highlighted within our answer provenance in our generated answer, then we know that those key phrases were pulled verbatim from our documentation. We're also provided with a link to some documentation down below that will take us straight to our source where this answer was generated from. Again, we can look at our total response time, our semantic match score being a 23%. I would consider a respectable semantic match score. It's hard to get 100% semantic match score due to variance in language generation. I will show you the possibility of that when we move on to caching next. But anything over 10 to 20% we would consider to be a reasonable semantic score. And within our analysis, we can see why that score is the way it is, and that is due to the many source jumps within our articles. Our knowledge-based confidence and coverage is very high. We see an 84% knowledge-based coverage, meaning that they did find a lot in our sources to contribute to that answer, and that we were very confident in the generated answer that we were provided with. Our knowledge-based context also provides us with insights onto exactly the paragraphs and URL page within our documentation where those keywords were pulled from to generate this total answer for us. I'm going to reset our session terms before we begin our next question. Just for another example, we're going to ask a bit more of a nuanced question. And that question here is, why should I use NeuralSeek with a knowledge base instead of just ChatGPT? All right, so as we can see, our answer provenance is again showing some of these highlights over keywords instead of full phrases, such as corporate, knowledge bases, data, ChatGPT, all showing different colors as well, meaning those keywords were pulled from different sources. Again, we can look at some of these insights. Overall, we can feel confidence in some of our answers thanks to these insights that NeuralSeek provides, as well as being able to take a deeper dive right into where our documentation is being pulled from just to generate this answer. So our Learning Lab guide does provide a few more example questions listed if you would like to continue to ask a few more questions. However, I would like to explore caching and how NeuralSeek uses it to enhance performance. So moving on, I'm going to move on to module 2.2, caching answers of our lab guide. I'm going to grab one sip of water while I load that up. All right. So caching will enhance performance by speeding up response times and producing more consistent results. Caching also reduces computational costs during operation. And we can look at this through our Curate screen within NeuralSeek. So I'm going to navigate over to Curate. And then here I can see the many different intents that were auto-generated by NeuralSeek from our Seek tab. So we can see our why is the sky blue question and the generated response that was created. And I'm specifically wanting to look here at our inaccurate answer example of what is the best cereal. So we can see as I click that drop down arrow, our FAQ of cereal, it provides some auto-generated different phrasings of how the same question could be asked. And on the right side, it shows our generated answer. We are able to manually correct answers by editing them. And then those edited answers are used to train future generated answers and also used for when you curate and export to a virtual agent. Editing answers is very simple. You just click on the answer and it pops up our edit box. So I'm going to delete out Cheerios and say that actually I want the best cereal to be Fruit Loops. And then when I save that answer, it'll show a sign of edited right next to it. And then now that our answer is marked as edited, there is over on the configure screen, a section called intent matching and cache configuration. So navigating over to the configure screen, I want to show all of our advanced options here. And down below, we have intent matching and cache configuration. All right, so this is where we can select how strict we want to be about matching intents, and it's especially helpful if you have edited answers like we just created that we want users to hit more as they seek. So we have two different scales here, our edited answer cache scale and our normal answer cache scale, and we're going to set both of these to 1 to prioritize our new edited answer. So I can do that either by using that sliding scale or just entering the number here on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and click that red save button and it'll pop up a version. So I can either name the version of this configuration as cache and add an optional description, or you can just continue to click save without a title. And it saves that new version of our new configuration. And then when I go back into Seek and I ask the same question of what is the best cereal, what we're expecting here is our cached answer. our edited answer that we added of the best cereal is Fruit Loops. We can see our total response time has cut down significantly. It is around 2 seconds, and it marks it as cached, knowing that we have edited that answer. This is where I was saying that we have that semantic match score of 100% because it is a cached answer, so it will serve up that 100% semantic match score. Our knowledge-based confidence and coverage scores are also 100% when an edited answer or a cached answer is served. And just know that edited answers are retained until they are updated or deleted. So even if your source document changes, use caution when editing your answers to make sure that they do contain that that relevant information, because as we can see, they are prioritized and served. So this moves us on to module 2.3 of our lab guide, which will be walking us through curated intents. Navigating back to the curate screen, as I glossed over a little bit through caching, here on the curate screen, we do get like this nice high-level overview of our intents. It's showing our coverage and our confidence scores as well, allowing us to very easily review what is being covered by our knowledge base, what is not, and what answers we're confident in, as well as what answers have new what intent has new answers, what are our cached and edited answers as well. So what I wanted to go over here in curated intents, starting with when you select an intent, many different options are available for us. And I can select these intents by clicking that check mark. And up here, we can review the many different options, such as editing a certain category, which we will dive into. We're able to download these intents as CSVs. Say I wanted to pass it off to a subject matter expert on my team, and I wanted to download a CSV file for their review. Some intents are better as conversations. So we're able to generate that whole intent into a conversation and save that. We're able to flag, rename, delete, as well as export and import into our actions. All right, so what we're going to look at first, however, before we get on to exporting and importing, is intent categorization, which will be this first button here, editing our category. And we'll start by doing this over in our configure screen. So navigating back to configure, scrolling down, we were just at intent matching. Underneath is our intent categorization category. And if you remember back from when we first started at the lab, this was an option on our home journey, and we are revisiting it now. So we do allow for this automatic intent categorization, and we can adjust that here in this screen as well. And like I said, we can describe a category in natural language along with a description, and then NeuralSeek will work to move those user questions that match that category into those categories. So following the Learning Lab guide, the first category that I'm going to add is going to be a virtual agents one. I know that our documentation speaks a lot to virtual agents. So I'm going to add that new category. And along with it, I'm going to add a link to our documentation to use as fallback, just for better reference for our category. And then we can describe our category in detail. So these are virtual agents that are supported by NeuralSeek. So as users come in and ask questions about NeuralSeek, I want to be able to easily reference those specific questions. So I'm going to have them fall under this new defined category. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And I'm going to name my new version category. And then let's see this in action. So going back over to our Seek tab, I'm going to ask a new question. And we'll see how this new generated response and intent falls into our virtual agents category. So very easy, what virtual agents are supported by NeuralSeek? Right, we can see our generated response here. But what I'm really curious about is under our Curate tab, looking at that newly created virtual agent's intent. And what I'm specifically looking at here is that number 1, showing our virtual agents category. When I click on it, I can edit our category and update it. The other intents fall under our other category, but now we have this newly defined virtual agents category, and that is showing where this new intent relating to virtual agents falls under. So simple as that. That is our virtual agents categorization. Another reason why I would want to categorize is because, say I get a lot of questions specifically about this one category of virtual agents. NeuralSeek offers their governance tab, which I'm going to briefly run through here. So when I click on the last tab on the right is our governance tab. This is where we get a nice high-level overview of information from our Curate tab and to see how these categories are broken down. So I do describe this a bit more within our knowledge-based tuning section of Module 2.4, but since we're here and it relates to our categories, let's go over it. So our NeuralSeek governance tab is this centralized platform where users can access various insights and metrics related to the governance of your NeuralSeek system. So we're going to look at configuration insights as one. We also have semantic insights, documentation insights, also intent analytics and system performance. Looking at our configuration insights, here we can review each version of NeuralSeek configuration that we've created, and that contains the different changes that we've made during our tuning steps, which is why you'll see that we have a base settings step, our different versions, where we can see in our first version that we've saved, where we added our company name. Our second was where we added that knowledge base information. And we can also see our named versions, like when we saved our cache settings. I can scroll over and click on that cache version and see what it was before and what we've changed our settings to. Our new category version, I can see all the edits that we've made there. We can also use that magnifying glass to zoom in on dates as this NeuralSeek instance ages and expands. We can view all of our different configuration insights. Our documentation insights also allow us to review our sources and references that NeuralSeek uses for answer generation. But what I wanted to show you here, we can see our knowledge base coverage and confidence, our most referenced docs, most referenced URLs. But what's interesting is that we're also able to filter by our category. We can see that we have our other category and then that new virtual agents category. So as the virtual agents intent gets grows and gets bigger, I can filter specifically by that one intent. Or as multiple intents come in falling under that virtual agents category, I can just filter by the category alone and then view our insights related to both the category and the intent. Similarly, within semantic insights, I'm going to click that X button so we can see the original view of our semantic details, our confidence, our question resolution, total answer length and coverage, and we can see how many source jumps we are having. But very similarly to documentation insights, we can filter by a specific category and then a specific intent. Here I chose that other category instead of the virtual agents one, and I can see our different intents that we have here. So you can really hone in on some of these insights related to the governance of your NeuralSeek instance. All right, let's finish up module 2.3 before we move on to some of our knowledge-based tuning. What is really interesting that I want to highlight next is our ability to export and import curated intents into our virtual agent. So we have that newly created virtual agent, which is all well and good, but how do I get these new, like my new edited intent or my new virtual agent intent? How do we bootstrap our virtual agent with these new intents that are either manually curated or generated via NeuralSeek? So to do this, we are first going to launch into our IBM Watson Assistance page. What we're going to do is as I head back over to that our Watson X assistant, let me make sure I X out of this current action, minimize our preview. We want to open up our actions. So in the top right corner, I'm going to make sure I'm under actions. And in the top right corner here, I can view my global settings icon. And so the reason I'm starting out here in Watson X Assistant is because we're going to want to download our existing content from our assistant, bring it into NeuralSeek, export what we have into NeuralSeek back into our assistant, because the export import abilities act as a merge, and we don't want to overwrite our existing content. So our first thing that we're going to do is we go into our global settings, and then all the way on the right, see our upload, download, our actions icons. So I'm going to go ahead and download our existing content, which will create a Learning Lab actions JSON file. And when I bring that back into my NeuralSeek instance on our curate screen, I have that blue import base Watson Assistant actions icon. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Let me go to my downloads, make sure I grab that IBM Learning Lab action file and open it up. So now we have our base Watson Assistant actions uploaded, and I'm ready to grab my curated intents and bring them back over into my assistant without having to worry about losing my current information there, my current designated actions. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to select my different intents. I can either select one, two, or select all. And then over here on the blue, I'm going to click this Export to Watson Assistant Actions, which will download an actions JSON file for us. When I come back into my assistant, back on our global settings page, we had just downloaded. Now we're going to upload. So just a few quick, easy back and forth steps. Drag and drop that actions file in. I'm going to upload. And here we're going to see a caution message showing us that we will permanently replace our current actions. So to make sure that we download first before we upload, which we did complete. So we're going to click upload and replace. Great. So that skill is now successfully uploaded. When I close our settings icon, I can now see within our created by you actions, those new FAQs, those new intents that we had in NeuralSeek, such as our manually curated serial intent, our virtual agents intent, why is the sky blue intent. And now I have my virtual agent bootstrapped to my NeuralSeek, or from my NeuralSeek, and I'm ready to go. So it really is just as simple as just a few back and forth clicks. The main takeaway here is always download your existing content, but bring it into NeuralSeek before exporting. Back onto NeuralSeek, I do want to highlight that we offer round trip monitoring over in our Integrate tab. Oh, I apologize. Over in our Integrate tab, our Watson logs. We do for round trip monitoring. I won't go step by step because it'll save us some time here. But just know that we do have step-by-step instructions for this. When you enable this feature, it will help keep your source data up to date for optimal answer generation. So when curated intents are imported into a virtual agent and they're hit, a call back to NeuralSeek will occur and monitor the curated intents for outdated information. And then it'll alert the user of necessary updates based on any different changes made to the relevant documentation in your knowledge base source. So just know that that is an option available for you as well. All right, so I'm going to take a sip of water before we move on to knowledge base or module 2.4 knowledge base tuning. If you had attended any of our previous labs, this new material that I'm about to cover, it has recently been updated on our lab guides. So I am excited to share because we do get a lot of questions about knowledge-based tuning, and it is something very vital to making sure you have a like a successful experience with your NeuralSeek instance. So NeuralSeek offers several different ways to improve your generated answers. I'm going to navigate to my Configure tab here. Within our Configure tab is where you can adjust these different parameters best suited for your use case. And this will improve some low quality responses that you may initially see. So for more information on our best knowledge-based tuning practices, we do have a knowledge-based tuning guide in our documentation as well. But we're going to play around with some of these settings and kind of review how our answers are affected by them. So I'm going to follow the lab guide here. And the first setting that we're going to start with is reducing our max docs. And then we're going to increase our snippet size. So to do this, we're going to expand our knowledge-based tuning section, which is the second accordion down. And we have different parameters with sliding bars here, such as our document score range, our date penalty, our query cache. But we're looking here at our max docs per seek and then our snippet size. So the max docs per seek option, it determines how many documents NeuralSeek sends to the language model for each query. So when you have a lower number, such as 1, it can really focus NeuralSeek's attention on fewer documents per query and potentially improve your answer relevance. The snippet size option sets the character count of text passages to pass to the knowledge base for document passage size. So the larger the snippet size, such as 1,000 characters, provides more context, but may also increase processing time. So just know that these are different features that are available. So we're going to start with reducing our max docs, increasing our snippet size, and reviewing how that affects our answer, reversing the operation, and then comparing those answers. So using that sliding scale on the max docs, we're going to set that sliding scale to 1, and then set our snippet size sliding scale to 1,000. I'm going to go ahead and save those settings, and I'm not going to name this version just for reference. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And then when I come over to Seek, I'm going to make sure my session turns are at 0, and I'm going to ask a question such as, how does NeuralSeek filter? So these settings that we have it on now focus NeuralSeek on a detailed analysis of fewer docs per query, but potentially enhancing the quality and relevance of our generated answer. So we have an answer here. What we're going to review is that 1 document, because we've sent our max docs per seek to 1, and a larger passage size as we increase that snippet size setting. Right? Back to our Configure tab, let's reverse the scenario and then compare those generated answers. So I'm going to change instead our max docs all the way to the top, which is 30. And then I'm going to reduce our snippet size significantly to around 250. I'm going to go ahead and save. And then repeat that process. So coming back over to Seek, just for reference, this was our original answer. NeuralSeek filters by setting the filter field value to match the connected knowledge base. As I re-seek, we can see our provenance highlights a lot more within this answer. And as I scroll down, I can see that we have a lot more documentation sources that were pulled to generate this answer. We can see that through our provenance, and we can also see that through our knowledge base context. When I expand one of these, because we reduced our snippet size significantly, we can see these tinier passages being pulled back, even though we have a large amount of source documents that were pulled back. All right, so this configuration kind of broadened NeuralSeek's scope by analyzing more documents per query, but shortened those text snippets. So navigating back to our configure tab, our best practice for max docs per seek and snippet size is around 4 and then 500. So I'm just going to change that back to our best practices values and then click save before moving on. All right. So still within this knowledge-based tuning accordion in our configure tab, let's start looking at our document score range. This feature here will dictate the range of possible relevance scores that NeuralSeek will return as a result. So for example, if the score range is set to 0.8, which it currently is, or around 80%, the results of the documents with a relevance score between the range of 20 and 100% will be returned. So let's see how when we tighten our document score range, this affects the relevancy and accuracy of our answer outputs. So I'm going to use this sliding scale to reduce our document score range down to 20 or 0.2. All right, and as I click save, I'm going to move back over to our Seek tab and then query for answers. The query that we're going to reference here is within our lab guide, and that is how is PII secured by NeuralSeek. All right, so as we review our output, what we should look for is when our document score range was lowered, there was a greater stringency in sending back the best match result. So the top 20% of our top scoring documents for this query were sent back for our answer generation. So we have that one document here showing our 100% relevancy. But out of all the documents within our knowledge base, the top 20% of our top scoring documents were used to generate this answer. All right. So there's a few more that I would like to get through. I just want to note the time here. I'm going to reset our document score range back to 80% as our 0.8 or 80%. There we go. I'm going to save that. So now our knowledge-based tuning section is at kind of our standard best practices values. So one more thing that I find very interesting and would like to discuss is the prioritization. So still within our knowledge-based tuning screen, I apologize, our knowledge-based connection screen. This is where we walked through with our on our home journey where we added our knowledge base type and our different URLs and API keys. But another feature that we offer for prioritization is this resort values list. So this will allow users to prioritize certain values without entirely excluding other ones, regardless of KB score. So we're going to look at an example where we would like to prioritize the content in some of our sources to better generate some answers. All right, so like I was saying, within this resort values field, to add a new value, I'm going to click that light bulb icon to add a new row. And you can see it automatically adds a priority number of 1, 2, 3, the more that I add. So this accepts a value or a like a regex. A value, so previously we've seen if you have multiple collections within your Watson discovery and you want to prioritize a certain collection, say you have a collection for PDFs and you have a collection of an entire web scrape and you want to prioritize the information in your PDFs because you know that had been manually curated, you can come in and add that collection ID within this resort values list as well, and it will prioritize your PDF collection without entirely excluding what was in your web scrape collection. So we only have one collection within our knowledge base right now. So instead, what I'm going to do is prioritize by our different titles that are seen within our knowledge base. So using that drop down, I'm going to scroll and click title. You can see we offer many different types of values to prioritize, but I'm going to choose title. And then within our value, I'm going to do this regex of our knowledge-based tuning, meaning that any document that comes back with a title that begins with knowledge-based tuning, that's what I want to prioritize for my answer. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And we'll see this in action. So going back over to the Seek document or the Seek tab, I'm going to add a question in here about how can source documentation be improved. And we can start to see the prioritization happen. So, you know, based on our documentation, as we scroll down, let's see. So this was, let's go back into our configure settings and make sure that we are getting the expected answer. So I'm going to move our max docs up just a bit. And we're going to save. And let's try this again. All good. I will explain either way. So what I was expecting to see here, which we can work, and if you have questions, there are those on the chat that can help answer, but prioritization of documents, ones that we added that were titled knowledge-based tuning, that's occurring behind the scenes. So within our knowledge-based context, we see a visual re-ranking. So a different source may appear at the top of that section, such as here we see our reference materials, our tuning guide, where we were looking for one that began with knowledge-based tuning. This doesn't mean that the prioritization of our content was not occurring. It just means that another document was used for answer generation. We can also see that it was a cached answer here. So we can fiddle around with this a little bit more and work on getting that answer properly generated. However, I'm going to move on. And if you have further questions, we can help answer in the chat. Just know that that prioritization does occur behind the scenes, even if you're not seeing it as the top source within your knowledge-based context group. So our last feature here, I know within our lab guide, we have governance going on next, or be spoken about next within 2.4. We did just cover our governance tab. So instead, I'm going to move on to our PII section. This is one of the last unique features we'll cover here because PII handling is very important for maintaining a secure environment and still providing accurate responses to different user queries. So our example question that we have here in our lab guide will not be in our source documentation. And I do want to show you how this PII is affected. So what I'm going to do over in our configure tab is change one setting to allow for a generated response. So over in answer engineering and preferences, we have, oh, perfect. So we have force answers from the knowledge base. When this is turned true, it does exactly as it's listed. It forces answers from the knowledge base, which contains our source documentation. I want to keep this set at false. No need to save since that was already the default setting. But under, I apologize. Bear with me one moment. Here we go. Under our configure screen, we have an accordion near the bottom called personal identifiable information handling, or PII handling. So we can choose an action to take when PII is found, such as masking, flagging, or no action is taken. You can also view NeuralSeek's different detectors that we already have enabled, such as phone numbers, IP addresses, social security numbers, and you're able to try this out by adding a sentence. The one that is provided here is my name is Bob and this is my ID number, and test and kind of view how that PII is handled when either masked, flagged, no action is taken, it's retained, etc. So what I'm going to look for here as we follow our lab guide is we're going to choose our LLM-based PII filters, where we can provide an example sentence and then what that element is, and have that masked as PII. So an example sentence that I'm going to add in here is, I graduated college from JMU. And then our PII in the sentence is our college name, JMU. We could also do this with phone numbers, address information, blood type is another example, etc. So when we save these responses, and then we're going to head over into Seek and then kind of play around and view how this PII is masked. So I'm not going to specifically reference our college name in our first question. Instead, I'm going to ask what colleges are in Virginia. So what we were expecting here is a vague answer, not including too much significant information. We can see like kind of a no semantic match score because this is not in our knowledge base. And then as we inspect this on our curate screen, what we're looking for is that this was masked with PII. So let's ask another question and kind of view if this filter is working. So let's specifically reference our PII. So where is JMU located? You know, all good. Here we go. So over within our curate, oh, I apologize if I moved a little too quickly. So where's JMU located? I asked within our curate screen. I'm navigating back into our curate screen, and I'm going to open up that intent that was newly created when I asked that question. So we can see that this intent has new answers, and it's also marked with having PII because we specifically referenced JMU in our query, and we had told the large language model in a filter that that is PII, and we would want it masked. So we can see in our question that JMU is masked, and we have these symbols indicating that our answer was formed with PII and that the question contained PII in it. All right. So that was module 2, seeking answers. So I hope that gave a kind of a quick but well summarized overview of some different ways to bootstrap your virtual agent, some different navigations within configure and how to tune, as well as how to utilize this curate and seek tab, monitor your instance within governance. So I've kind of glossed over one specific feature that is really unique and exciting within NeuralSeek, and that is the mAIstro feature, which we'll cover next. I'm going to grab one sip of water and then pull up module 3 of our Learning Lab guide. All right. So the mAIstro feature. It's a very exciting feature. It has a lot of different capabilities, ranging from very simple to very complex. If you're familiar at all with large language model prompting, then this is essentially a big playground for that. We're going to walk through an initial tour of mAIstro and kind of learn how to effectively configure different nodes, modify natural language prompts, and generate content with mAIstro's unique editors. So our examples that we have here today following our lab guide are very high-level overviews, very simple examples. Know that they can get much more complex. mAIstro is being updated very frequently with a lot of new integrations, a lot of new features and RAG tools to be able to use. So make sure you check out our documentation for more detailed information on all of the capabilities available within mAIstro. So the first thing we're going to start with here is when we launch mAIstro, we get a screen to say, let's start building. So we have some example templates that we're going to work through, one or two of them. We also have user templates, which are our custom, our saved templates that we have built ourselves, and then saved them and are able to recall for future use. Or you're also able to have a blank canvas and build your own template from the jump. Another really exciting feature within mAIstro is this generate a template. So with a sentence or two, if you just describe what you're looking to do, what the purpose is, we're able to generate a template for you where you're able to use it right out of the box or modify to better fit your needs. But if you're not really seeing an example template, even though there are several, and you're just not quite sure where to begin, feel free to use this generate template option because it's very exciting and useful. We're going to walk through taking a tour, however, today. But instead of clicking to take the tour, I'm just going to go ahead and walk it through right now here. So we can first see, I chose the build your own option. We can see our two different editors, a visual editor and an NTL editor. So our visual editor allows us to have those boxes called nodes pop up. And our NTL editor, we use our NeuralSeek template language to edit our prompt that way. A quick walkthrough before I get started. We have very different data sources you're able to connect to, anywhere from a REST API, a REST call, your knowledge-based documentation, a website URL, a file, and you're able to do many different things, such as send your data, integrate with many different databases, control some of the flow. A very exciting new feature if you attended our monthly feature highlight review with Garrett was our virtual knowledge base, being able to connect to one of those. We can see those here within mAIstro. All right, but let's get started with our basic tour. So on our sidebar menu, we want to start with getting our data section. So I'm going to choose the website node. And as I point and click, a node pops up. We can also see that node pop up in our NeuralSeek template language here on our NTL editor. I'm going to stick with the visual editor for ease of use. But it's really as simple as just a point and click. And as I click something, I'm able to delete because a parameters side menu pops up. So within our website data, this is the first node that we're going to populate inside our visual editor. And when I click on it, we see that panels property appear on the side. And then here we can add a URL to scrape. However, if I do leave this blank, when I go to click evaluate, I will be prompted for a URL as well. So let's scrape a URL here. I'm just going to use neuralseek.com following the Learning Lab. We can see a hover menu pop up as well. We do have more information about that within our documentation. I'm going to close out of that and make sure that our website data is populated. On the sidebar menu, I want to generate some data. So first thing I'm going to do is choose the send to LLM. And this will pop up a new send to LLM node. And when I open it up, I can see our parameters box pop up here on the side, as well as what's great about these nodes is that they're movable and chainable. So I can move them from different points within my flow. I can also chain them together. So when you move them to the right, and you want to make sure when chaining that I don't just put it off to the side here because we can see that that connection is not there. When that blue button, the blue little circle pops up, I know that I'm within distance of the other node and it'll chain properly. So I can just drop it right there and see now that my LLM node is chained to my website data node. Okay, great. So when I click on that node, that properties panel appears, and inside is where I can add a prompt to prepend to the LLM. So the prompt that I'm going to add here is we're going to create a bulleted list of major topics from our documentation below. Right. So on our sidebar menu, our next node that we want to add to our flow is another send to LLM node. So I'm going to choose that. And we notice how this new second node pops up below. And so we have one node connected in a horizontal chain, and then we have our second node pop up below. So what I'm going to do is add a prompt to this send to LLM node as well, prompting it to create a LinkedIn post based on the bulleted list below and using a lot of hashtags. Yeah, perfect. All right. I'm going to click that blue evaluate button down here at the bottom. And our output format, we offer multiple different types of formatting, but I'm just going to choose the inline formatting here. And as we can see, what was generated was our LinkedIn post with lots of hashtags. Another great way to view what was going on within our flow is this debug button at the top. So when I click that debug icon, we can see the full path of the evaluation and all of our context variables. So we're showing here in step 1, our web URL. So this was what was grabbed from that URL of neuralseek.com that we added. Our step 2 is our LLM node. Note the chain, indicating that this was a chained node. And the contents generated are showing that bulleted list of major topics from our documentation, as our prompt states here. So we can see that bulleted list. Step 3 was not chained, and instead it is prompted with creating that LinkedIn post using a bulleted list and a lot of hashtags. And we can see that that output matches our inline output as well. So this was just a very simple overview. We can choose to download this into a Microsoft Word, a PDF, export as CSV, which being sure that our output does need to be in CSV or JSON format. And if I really like this post and I want my future marketing team members to continue to use it, I like the prompting that I've done, we can go ahead and save this node and give it a unique name. So when people come in later, they can just pull up our template and regenerate LinkedIn posts in the same fashion, maybe just changing the website URL here or there. So LinkedIn post is what I'm going to name. And I can add a quick description of who's it for. We're going to say internal marketing team, and then click save. So say I clear my new flow, starting with a blank editor again. When I go to load my user template, I can see that I have that new user template here with our LinkedIn post that we just created. I can either export the entire template, delete, or load, and it just re-pops it back up, ready to be evaluated again. Awesome. So that was just the tour of mAIstro. I'm going to close out of this, and instead let's walk through one of our example templates. So as I click load, instead of going back into our user templates, I'm going to click example templates. And you can see the wide variety of example templates that are offered, and just more are constantly being added. We have prospecting email, which is what we'll walk through, updating some documentation or writing a memo to your staff. We have some more, such as troubleshooting ticket, using a Watson Assistant chat history to create a troubleshoot ticket. We have that virtual knowledge base, transcribing a call, translating a document is a great one, using those context loop variables. But the one that we're going to go to, we also have recommending close based on a weather forecast is a great one. let's look at something a little more similar, like prospecting email. So in a similar fashion as our tour template, this creates a marketing email based on a list. And the list is provided by a website data that we provide the URL for. They then summarize the contents pulled from that URL and then send to the large language model, prompting it to create that bulleted list of features. We send this entire flow down to the large language model where it will create that marketing email for us. So these different blocks, let's just click evaluate and then kind of view how these different blocks work together in that flow. As you can see, I have not added a URL, and that is okay because when I click evaluate, we get that prompt for that URL, for that missing parameter. So let's see if I have a good URL. We can still do neuralseek.com. A useful tip if you are just playing around is if you grab URLs from Wikipedia, maybe they're silly or interesting or more relevant to your field of work. Wikipedia is really great to pull URLs from because they're a great text-based platform. And so that's just a great way to kind of utilize this when you're playing around with the mAIstro feature here. So great, so it generated our output. So as I said before, writing this marketing email, and this is what our output did. Say I'm really happy with this marketing email. It provides a subject, it does the outline. Let's look at the debug inspector and see what we kind of pulled from that website. Right, so that was our text step. Our web step, this is the information that was pulled from neuralseek.com. Let's see what it looks like when it was summarized to 1500 in length. And then using that summary, this was the list of bulleted features that was made based off of this documentation. We can see it mentions things like large language models, auto building, virtual agent platforms. And then this was our final output within our large language model, our last step. All right. Let me just note the time here before I go over a few other different features within the lab. Oh, good. Okay. So we can go over another template since we do have a little bit of time here. Let's do recommend weather. So this is a good template to showcase. I'm not going to make too many modifications to it, but it does show how we have like a REST connector, and this pulls out to our the weather API. And then we prompt the LLM to provide us with some details, a recap of a forecast, and then also making a recommendation on what I should wear. So we can go ahead and evaluate that. And then view that output. So it is, 88 degrees, and it is giving our wind for us, our different forecasts for today. And then down below, it is showing how it's based on our forecast. Here are some recommendations for us to wear. Let's say, oops, there we go. Our debug inspector, we can look at this as well and see our step one was that post with our connecting URL. And we can see all the different variables that were pulled back, such as different coordinates, different properties, and how all of this information was used by our large language model with a prompt to recommend what we should wear based on this forecasting. And we can see all that within our inspector here. So the inspector is a great way to view whether you're getting a different response with each within your flow and you're getting a different response, or you can see if your website is not being grabbed with the right amount of text, or if you need to add another condition in there or another prompt to the LLM. Using that Explore Inspector and really drilling down into what is happening step by step is like a great way to debug what's going on within your flow to better optimize it and get that generated output that you're looking for. So like I said, our documentation does provide a more thorough step-by-step of what each of these tools does and how to be able to utilize them to build out either something very simple or something complex and automate your experience here within mAIstro. We could spend a lot of time playing around with this feature. However, that does kind of conclude our Learning Lab guide here as we walked through all of step module 3. I do want to note that at the end of our lab guide, we do have closing steps with information on how to deprovision your instances that you've created as to not like incur further billing. That would be your Watson X Assistant instance and your NeuralSeek instance. But I thank you for your time with me today. And if you have any continuing questions, I will stop sharing my screen and answer in the chat.